So we've got the Republican-controlled House that remains in chaos on this third day after 11 ballots, unable to function, even swear in its members, who are still members-elect without a speaker. The Senate, though, now firmly in Democratic hands, 51 Democratic senators, is a stunning contrast. They've all been sworn in. It's started. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell appeared alongside President Biden in Kentucky yesterday to celebrate a new bipartisan funding for a vital bridge. Rob Portman, the recently retired Ohio Republican senator, was there, Sherrod Brown. Late last month, McConnell had worked with Democrats to pass the $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill to keep the government running. And here's the thing. You can't get much more partisan than Mitch McConnell. So what's going on here? Well, I think he's made a tactical judgment that it is in his best interest to try to kind of isolate, alienate, and stamp out a certain tendency in the Republican Party, the MAGA Trump tendency, to one which he's bowed to time and time again. But I think he senses a little weakness here, which is part of what that was about. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out throughout this year once the House presumably does get a speaker. Joining me here in New York is Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Democrat of Nevada. She just won re-election against a Republican challenger who had pushed Trump's election lie before and after January 6th. Senator, it's good to have you here.
Great to be here with you.
Let's start on that point. Your opponent, Adam Laxalt, was he was interesting. He was both a kind of McConnell establishment Republican-backed candidate and a Trump-backed candidate,
right,
but definitely a partisan of the big lie. How much did you focus on that in your campaign?
Well, I think that was the key. You know, in Nevada, I was proud to have not just Democratic support, but Republicans and nonpartisans. And I don't agree with Mitch on many things, but after the election, what he said was it was because of the chaos and the negativity that drew a lot of moderate Republicans away and independents. And that's true for Nevada. What we saw were the right-wing radicals, including my opponent, who was the face of the big lie.
Yep.
Right, that was really incited what we saw on January 6th, that insurrection, that violent mob, and you were talking about it earlier in your show, that just tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power in this country. I can't tell you how many people in Nevada just saw that and talked to me about it. And, you know, I lived it, I was there, and it was horrific, but I will tell you the people watching it had an emotional connection. And that's what I felt and saw in Nevada. And they did not want anybody who was connected with that, including my opponent.
We of course, are on the eve of the second anniversary of it. You know, during the summer with the hearings and as this network and this show spent a lot of time covering this, there were some people who said, you're out of touch with what voters care about. This is an abstract concern. People care about the price of gas. They care about the price of milk at the grocery store. You sound removed and foreign if you do all this democracy talk. Did you get counsel from anyone that was the case? Was anyone telling you, like, stop talking about that?
No, because we got to give credit to people. That, you know, I was hearing from people, it's the kitchen table issues, of course. Price of gas in Nevada was very high. We have
you have the worst in the country at certain points.
It's gone down now, but yes, it was
pretty bad,
in the height of it. And so there were cost issues, and there were issues around really the right of a woman for reproductive freedom rights. That was an issue. But so was this. Voters were talking to me about all of the above. And they wanted somebody that was really going to not only understand it, but also address it and fight for it. They're looking for bipartisan problem solvers. They're looking for people to work together. That's what I know, and that's what I heard from so many Nevadans. And I will tell you, Chris, this was so important, not just to the Democrats, but Republicans in my state have come out, and they came out and talked to me about this. Many of them did a press conference with me, concerned about the state of our democracy and the big lie. So it was a combination of things, and for me, it was really just listening to people across the state and engaging them and letting them know I understood what they were dealing with, and I was willing to fight on their behalf.
So let me ask you a follow-up, but I don't know if you heard the conversation just previously, but basically I think everyone, you know, across the ideological spectrum, when they seriously evaluated what happened in that midterm, it was Republican extremism, January 6th, Donald Trump, the sort of anti-democratic faction of the party, along with the overturning of Roe, cost the party considerably. And now you have folks, you're watching the spectacle of that same group of people wielding this cudgel, getting concession after concession from Governor McCarthy, who himself is, you know, kissed up to Trump and kissed his ring. What do you think that says after the midterms, after the kind of accountability moment it seemed we have that this is what we're getting in the House.
Well, that's the challenge. They're not listening to what the American public wants. Coming from Nevada, which is a purple state, really evenly Democrats, Republicans, nonpartisans, they're looking for people that want to govern and really want to solve problems, come together. Listen, we passed the bipartisan infrastructure package. We passed the bipartisan Chips and Science Act. The Respect for Marriage Act was bipartisan. I could talk about that in Nevada to so many people who saw, oh, wow, you can really get things done just working together and solving these problems. That's what the American public wants. That's what Nevadans wanted. And they're watching this and playing out now, and there's still that right-wing faction that just doesn't get it. And to me, if you're not listening to what the American public, what people are saying and what they're looking for, and listening to their challenges and what they want us to do in Congress, then you're on the wrong side of it. And we see that playing out right now in the House side.
What do you think about what this year looks like on the Senate side? You got 51 senators, so there's a little more room to operate, judicial confirmations, executive appointments. But of course, anything that gets passed is going to have to go through that House.
Well, it's the first time, and I was saying this earlier, it's the first time now where the Senate is actually going to be able to get something done, and now we're going to have to see whether we can pass it in the House. I am hopeful that we continue in the Senate to work in a bipartisan way. Every piece of legislation, I reach out to somebody on the other side of the aisle. We've passed bipartisan legislation in the past. We're still looking to do things that we can work together. Listen, we have our extremes, but there's a good group of senators on both sides that just want to work together and solve the problems and get things done. And I think the Senate continue and should continue down that path.
I'm going to ask you a question about your home state, Nevada. And people may or may not know this, but it's a very heavily unionized state, particularly Las Vegas. Most of the casinos are unionized. It's a very strong union. And one of the amazing things when you go to a casino, and if the first time you have a meal, right, you get a drink, that bartender is often a member of a union. Waiter, member of a union, right? Folks busing, members of unions. And that means they're not living precarious lives with no benefits. They're waiting what their tips are. They have guaranteed benefits and a wage from that union. How much would you like to see that model in other places in America as we watch service industries pushing for unionization?
Well, here's what I know, and this is a service industry in our state, and I know it well because that's why my family's there. My grandfather worked in the service industry. He was a pit boss, opened some of those casinos. My aunts, uncles, my cousins, to this day, my cousins are working in the casinos or did cocktails. What they're looking for is that opportunity for that good paying job, be able to afford health care, put a roof over your head, and make sure your kids have every opportunity. And what I know, because my father was a proud member of the Teamsters, I had an uncle who was a proud member of the operating engineers and worked for the Hilton Hotel his entire career, is that organized labor helps provide that. And that it's a family in the sense they're looking out for one another. Those are our families, and we want to make sure that those jobs are good, there's good paying wages there, there's health care, and we're taking care of our kids in the future. And by the way, you should be able to retire with dignity in this country. And that's what these organized labors, that's why it is so important to continue to protect them, because that's our working family. That's who it is. That's the service industry, along with our organized labor, our building trades who built this country. That's what it's about.
I mean, Vegas is one of the few places in this country, because of a combination of relatively inexpensive housing, though that's changed a little bit, and that strong labor unions, where you can have a service job and have a middle-class life. You can buy a house, you can get a mortgage, you buy a house, you can say, and that's, in some ways, I'd like to see a lot more places have that. In some ways, I think Vegas is a model for that. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, it's very nice to have you here. Come back anytime.
Thank you, I will.